Hello, everyone. Welcome back to The Pursuit. Thanks for being with us for another episode. And man, I'm excited to have you here today. Before we jump into the episode today, I just want to give a huge thank you to all of our listeners, whatever platform you listen in. Thank you so much. It's been amazing getting the feedback and the messages and the comments. And I read every single comment, by the way, on YouTube, on Apple, on all the different platforms. I read them. So thank you so much for sharing them. Matter of fact, I want to share one with you. This just showed up the other day and I'm just appreciative for all the messages. This is from Renak Bavsar. And he said, Ben's podcast is filled with gold worth of information. Every episode has life lessons that we can apply to change in our life. I love the wisdom he shares and I'm able to relate a lot. Thank you for that, Renak. I'm so grateful for all of the listeners and all of the comments. Please keep them coming. It's part of what makes the show so fun to do, is just seeing where it's making a difference in your life. So again, thank you to everybody for those. Please keep them coming. Today, I want to talk to you about the power of small wins and consistency. So one of the things I think often when we're on the pursuit of the next level of life, or that best version of ourselves, or a greater dream, a bigger vision, sometimes I think we get hung up in the big picture. Sometimes the vision's so important to have, as a lot of episodes we've talked about that. But sometimes I think we get hung up in thinking that, today doesn't matter, or what I'm doing is insignificant in it. It's the big wins are the things that matter. And the truth is that the big wins all come from small wins. It's very rarely do you hit necessarily a massive boom. This day was the day that my whole life changed in terms of the business. This was when I made my first million. Usually it's a compounded effect of many different things that you've done over an extended period of time. So the power of small wins and consistency is so important. What I find is often a lot of achiever type people, we don't celebrate the little wins. And if you don't celebrate the little wins, you're going to have a hard time celebrating the big wins. But also, if you're not celebrating the little wins, then there can be a lot of frustration in your life, feeling like you're not making as much progress as you actually are. So one of the best kept secrets of the world class, one of the best kept secrets, I think, of really high performers is the fact that they celebrate small wins. And keep in mind, a lot of what we're doing for all of us is we're trying to reprogram our brain, reprogram our mind to a new level of awareness, a new level of success, if we will, because whatever your mind is programmed for is what you will produce in your life. We've talked a lot about your conscious and unconscious mind, and 95% of all habits, behaviors, thoughts, all that stuff, emotions are stored in your subconscious. 95%. Subconscious means below the level of awareness. You are not aware that you're even doing these things, that you're doing these things. So therefore, 95% of the results you're producing in your life are unconscious. So what we want to do is we want to rewire the brain for unconscious success, unconscious fulfillment, unconscious wealth, unconscious health, unconscious happiness. And we can create that, but we do that by conscious intent. The good news is that 5% we have control over is we have a lot of control over that, and we can use that to influence. So let's talk about some best practices in terms of consistency, best practices in building small wins towards the big wins. First things first, it's such a simple discipline, but man, is it effective. We've talked about gratitude in many other episodes. I've talked about a journal in almost probably every episode that I've done individually here, and will continue to. But I think that one of the important questions to reflect on is at the end of every day, what were 3 things that were a success today, and to actually write these down, to document these. So what were 3 successes today? 3 things that went really well for me today, and to take the time to actually write them. Worst case, I guess you could sit there and think about them, but writing, the kinetic act of writing is powerful. I think what it does, I think it influences our subconscious mind on a deeper level. And I'm going to challenge you to actually step into writing what were 3 things, 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 things that were successful today. And when you've done this for an extended period of time, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, maybe 6 months, I don't know. I can't tell you the exact time frame. But what you will start to notice is you're starting to rewire your brain for success. Now, in your waking moments, your brain will start looking for the things that are successful. And when we pause and reflect on how I was successful today, how was I successful today? And you stop and think, when you do that later at night and you're writing this down, you get to relive that moment where perhaps you didn't acknowledge it earlier in the day, that phone call that you made that was uncomfortable, or the workout that you did that you didn't want to do, or the appointment that went awesome, or the couple pages on your book that you wrote, or the blog that you wrote, or whatever it might be. practicing your routine for whatever kind of business you're in or sport you're in that you didn't want to do and you did it. Reflecting on that and allowing yourself to experience the success of it does a few things. Number one, it activates dopamine, the neurotransmitter in your brain. Dopamine is it's a great neurotransmitter that allows us to feel good. Dopamine feels good. And there's unhealthy ways to get dopamine through drugs and alcohol, these kind of things, eating too much. Social media and our phones is one of the biggest sources of it. One of the reasons why social media is so addictive, and as I find it to be many times, is because it's dopamine hits. You get a like, you get somebody message you, and it's an immediate dopamine. So that's why we're so hooked on our phones, because it's immediate dopamine. But you can use dopamine to your advantage. And one of the ways is to do this, is to literally write down 3 successes of the day. And when you do that, there's a dopamine release in your brain, the feel-good chemical, anyways. And this now we're starting to become addicted to success in a positive way, or starting to become a healthy obsession with success. So I'm looking for how I was successful, because often if we don't feel as successful as maybe we want to, the feeling is what we're actually after, right? The difference between someone that makes 10 million a year and $1 million a year, we could argue they're both successful, but one of them might feel, not successful because he thinks that if I'm not making 10 million, I'm not successful. Or maybe you make 100,000 compared to someone that makes $1 million, or even whatever it might be, right? You could bench 135, a plate aside, and somebody else can do 225. So you feel unsuccessful, but success is measured by us. And we want to feel successful. If we want to produce more success in our life, then we need to feel successful now. That's the key. If I'm waiting to feel successful, I'm going to be waiting forever, because I'm going to reach one milestone, one goal, and then I'm still not going to feel successful. So it's delusional to think that once I achieve this level, I will be successful, because the problem is you'll move that bar. And I lived this, by the way, for almost a decade. We're thinking that, I was going to allow myself to feel that way once I got to 6 figures, once I got to X dollars, whatever it was, once my business got to this size. And the thing is that I would get those goals, but then it was always on to the next goal, because we're goal-seeking machines. We're going to have new desires that come to us, and new intentions that do come to us. That's part of the human experience. It's a wonderful thing. But if we're not aware of this, and I'm always waiting to feel successful once I reach a certain goal, the problem is you'll probably never feel successful. But you can start feeling successful now. You are a success now by being in the pursuit of your next level of life, by being in the pursuit of that next level of you. Automatically, you're successful. But if you don't stop to acknowledge it, then very rarely will you just randomly feel like it, or you'll be at the whims of chance. But what if every day you acknowledge 3 things that I was successful for today, and you wrote them down? Well, guess what? You do that 365 days a year, 3 times a day. That's over 1,000 repetitions, 1,000 hits in your mind, in your brain, of successful actions that you took. I promise you, you will be a different version of you 6 months to a year from now if you engage in this practice. 3 things that were successful today. This is the power of small wins. And the small wins lead into the big wins, by the way. Momentum starts to build when you can see every day I've got these successes. And some days you might have to look harder than others. Some days it'll be easier. But you're starting to lead into the big wins, because I feel that momentum now inside of me. You feel that momentum inside of you. And if every day I'm successful, and I had 3 different things that were successful every single day, I'm already successful. And I will attract more success into my life. This is the way the law works. The way you feel and the way you think determines your state of being. Your state of being determines what you draw into your experience. So let's use some little tactical strategies that can help us shift our state of being. 3 successes of the day. The power of small wins is one of the greatest ways. The other thing we'll talk about today is this idea of consistency. And by the way, these tie hand in hand together. But consistency is magical. There's been a few great books. I'm sure there's many great books written on it, many great speakers. The 2 most influential books in my life on the power of consistency. Number 1 is The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. I think everybody should have a copy and read that book multiple times. And number 2 is The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy, who I also feel the exact same way. I've read both of those books numerous times. I've gone to some seminars with Darren too, actually, as well. But consistency is so magical. Working out is probably the best analogy for this stuff. We all understand that if I start working out today, let's say I was doing no working out, And at the time of this recording, it's kind of funny I'm talking about this because I wasn't doing a lot of working out, but then I hired a personal trainer recently and I've started just in the past few weeks here. And I know consistency is the magic, right? I can't expect that I've worked out a few times now and all of a sudden my muscles are going to be bulging out of my shirt or anything like that. That's not the way things work. Where I see results is 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 months down the road through the consistency. So consistency is the magic in producing anything we want. If you're in a sales type business, as many of you are, or a business of any kind, there's often lag. So there's a lag between the work you do today, the calls you make, the appointments you do, the prospects you're talking to, just like working out. But there's going to be a lag in between the results you're producing now and the results that are coming for you over the next 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. So the magic is in consistency, to keep doing the little things day in and day out. Where I find that most people fail, if you want to put it that way, or they don't succeed in their intentions, is start and stop. And we start working. Maybe we're working out, but we don't see results in that first 3 weeks. So we stop working out, or we don't see results in our business. So we stop doing the calls, we stop doing the appointments, or we stop doing whatever it is. Or, on social media, maybe you're trying to build your social media following and you're putting out content, but you're not getting new followers. So then we stop. And I think that a lot of us fall into this. I've definitely fallen into it many, many times. We're kind of like start, stop mentality, but where I've noticed the best success in my life has always been when I'm the most consistent. And not only is it the best success, but I also feel the best too, because when we're keeping commitments to ourselves, working out a certain times a week, making a certain amount of phone calls a day, any of these kind of things, when I'm keeping those commitments, I'm building self-confidence, and I'm building some wonderful, wonderful self-confidence. And I feel better. And the better I feel, the better I do. The better I do, the better I feel. And it becomes this wonderful reinforcing cycle. So consistency's the magic. I think I've spoken about this on a previous podcast, the idea of consistency before intensity too. So sometimes you want to build consistency. Sometimes what some people do is they just jump right into it. I'm not working at all. I'm going to start working out 5-6 days a week. And if you do that, awesome. If you stick with it. But sometimes to start smaller can be a better way. You're going to start making a certain amount of calls, this many more calls than you normally do per day. And maybe it's a little bit more, but that slight edge, that compound effect over the course of 3 months and 6 months and a year becomes big time, right? It becomes massive. And same thing in working out. So consistency before intensity can be a good thing to start building. Start with something. If you're not doing enough in one area, you feel you're not doing enough in this one area, then let's set the bar a little bit higher, nothing too crazy, but a little bit higher. Run with that for the next 3, 4, 5 weeks. And then let's raise the bar again. And then let's raise the bar again. And before you know it, your standard will now be significantly higher than what it ever was. And now a bad day is one of your previous good days because you've elevated your game. You've elevated your standards. And as we continue to do this, everybody, you elevate your standards, you're going to elevate your life. And this is what I've noticed in coaching people for the last, 13, 14 years. This is what I've noticed in my own life, is that as I keep raising the bar a little bit, now when I do fall off course, because we all do, when I do fall off course, my new lows were at once previous highs. And the analogy I give you is a lot like the stock market. The stock market historically has always gone up. There's always ups and downs. And we're going to look at big crashes and major corrections and stuff like that. But major corrections today didn't even exist as highs in some cases 10 and 15 and 20 years ago. Same thing in your life. As you're building this consistency, as you're building this success identity of I am a successful man, I am a successful woman, I am a successful person, because every day I have 3 things I'm doing that I'm successful in. And I'm building this new belief that I am successful now, not in the future, but now. And I work on this consistency, and perhaps consistency before intensity. If you're having a hard time getting started and you start to build this stuff, hey, you're going to bring yourself to all new levels of life. You're still going to fall off course at times. That's okay. You get back on the horse, get back on track, recommit. Look at where you were successful. And by the way, one of your successful things, let's say you fell off course that day or the previous day. Maybe being successful is I got back on the next day. That could be being successful. Again, we're all human beings, right? We're all going to have times where we're not feeling the best. We're all going to have times where we do drift and we all fall off course. The key is to get back on. Don't beat yourself up about it. You don't need to feel guilty about it. Let's just get back on track. You missed a day. That's okay. Let's get back tomorrow. You missed a week. All good. Doesn't mean the quarter's ruined. Doesn't mean the rest of your year is ruined. It's just that you missed a week. We don't need to attach a lot of meaning to it. Let's get back on the horse, back on track, and work towards it. So let's harness the power of small wins. 3 things I'm successful for every single day. Get right in those. take a look at where can I start building consistency before intensity. Or if you just want to dive into it, that's cool too. But let's get started on using that and use the magic of consistency, the magic of small wins to help you create magical results in your life. And that's what I'm all about, is how do we create more magic in our lives today, because we're all capable of doing it. Hey, thank you again for listening. I mean it. I really do. I read through every single comment. As I said earlier, it means a lot to me. Thank you for sharing it. Anytime that you do, tag me in it, tag any of our guests in it as well. You can certainly follow me on social media. Would love if you would share this episode or the show with somebody new today. Thanks for being with us. Take care, everybody. We'll see you soon.